In Preston, Idaho, there is a cattle ranch that the Wild family has been tied to since 1933. The stream that flows through it, Birch Creek, was once Jay Wild's entire childhood endless summers of swimming and fishing with his siblings. But in 1995, returning to take over the ranch after 30 years away, Wild faced a scene that shocked him. That stream of his memories was now just a cracked, completely dry riverbed as early as June. His cattle thirsted all summer, and not a single willow could survive on either bank. He tried everything to retain the water, but to no avail. Then one morning in 2006, while sipping coffee and looking out at the dry creek bed, Wildy suddenly remembered something no one had paid attention to for decades when he was a boy. There were always beavers living here. He decided to do what no neighbor dared to think of, asking the authorities for permission to personally release beavers back into the dead stream. But no one, not even Wild, expected that his first attempt would be a complete failure, and it would take nearly another decade for the mystery behind that failure to be unraveled by science. Part 1. The stream that was once a paradise, before the wagons, cattle ranches, and the wave of western expansion appeared. Beavers were the animals that shaped almost the entire river and stream system in North America. Scientists estimate there were once between 60 and 400 million individuals distributed across the continent. With just branches, mud, and small logs, they built millions of dams, turning narrow streams into a series of ponds and wetlands stretching for kilometers. The most important thing is not the dam itself, but the amount of water held behind it. Instead of rushing downstream after every rain, water was kept stable year-round and slowly seeped into the ground. The groundwater level was always high, helping thickets of willows, quaking aspens, and riparian plants grow densely. The tree canopy provided shade for the water surface, keeping the temperature cold enough for many native fish species to thrive. Especially the Bonneville cutthroat trout, one of the rare fish species of the Bonneville Basin. In Idaho, Birch Creek was once such a stream. This small stream flowed through the Wild family's ranch for generations. The water was so clear you could see the rocks at the bottom. Along the banks were lush green willow bushes, and along the flow appeared countless small ponds formed by beaver dams. It was not only a habitat for fish, waterfowl, and many other animals, but also a precious water source for the pastures and livestock in the area. For Jay Wild, Birch Creek meant even more than that. He grew up right beside this stream. During his childhood summer days, Jay would often walk along the ponds created by beavers, watching schools of fish swim in the crystal clear water and seeing the beavers silently drag branches to build dams as evening fell. Back then, that scene was so natural that no one thought it could disappear. If you were born in Birch Creek decades ago, the image associated with your childhood would not be a dry stream, but a succession of crystal clear ponds, lush green willows, and hard-working beavers working every night. No one expected it would all become just a memory. Few realize that beavers don't just build homes for themselves. Every dam they erect slows the flow, retains silt, reduces erosion, and creates conditions for countless other species to thrive. Therefore, ecologists often call beavers ecosystem engineers, a species capable of altering their entire surrounding environment in ways that benefit hundreds of other species. At Birch Creek, this went on for hundreds of years. Everything operated in a perfect cycle. Beavers held the water, water nourished the trees held the soil, and the stream continued to sustain fish and wildlife. Even the earliest ranchers benefited from the stable water supply without needing to understand who the true operator of that system was. However, that seemingly sustainable cycle only lasted until humans began to see beavers not as a part of nature, but as a valuable commodity and an obstacle to be removed. in just a few generations. The engineers of the water nearly disappeared from Birch Creek, marking the beginning of the decline of this once thriving ecosystem. Part 2. When humans wiped out the engineers of the water. The disappearance of Birch Creek did not start with a drought or a natural disaster. It started from human greed. From the 17th to the 19th century, Europe experienced a booming demand for beaver pelts to produce premium felt hats, a symbol of wealth and status. This craze quickly spread to North America, making the beaver one of the most hunted animals in history. Millions of pelts were shipped across the Atlantic each year. Expeditions of fur trappers continuously pushed deep into the wilderness, setting traps in almost every stream that showed signs of beavers. Over the course of 2 to 3 centuries, the beaver population across North America plummeted from an estimated 60 to 400 million individuals to just about 100,000 by the early 20th century. Many river basins once thick with beaver dams suddenly fell silent. Birch Creek was no exception. When settlers arrived in Idaho to establish ranches, they no longer viewed beavers as a part that made up the stream, but saw them as pests that sabotaged production. Beavers felled trees to build dams, leading many to believe they were destroying timber resources. They dammed the water, flooding areas zoned for cattle grazing or affecting irrigation canals. Therefore, in Birch Creek, as well as thousands of other streams across the American West, beavers were trapped, shot, or driven away from the places they had lived for thousands of years. What's worth noting is that the Wild family was once among those who believed this was the right thing to do. His family's previous generations also eliminated beavers to protect their ranching operations, just like almost every rancher of that era. No one thought they were inadvertently dismantling the foundation of an entire ecosystem. When the last dams disappeared, the water was no longer held back. Every spring, snowmelt rushed down very quickly and washed straight downstream instead of spreading across the wetlands as before. The stream bed began to erode more severely with each passing year. The flow increasingly gouged deeper into the ground, forming a narrow channel with steep banks. This phenomenon caused the water level to gradually drop relative to the adjacent pastures. Water no longer spilled over to nourish the wetlands, but merely flowed quietly at the bottom of an ever-deepening trench. As the groundwater level dropped, the willow bushes that once covered both banks began to die off because their roots could no longer reach the water source, without trees to provide shade. Direct sunlight hit the stream surface, causing the water temperature to rise in the summer. The deep pools that were once a refuge for fish disappeared, replaced only by shallow, narrow stretches of water. Native fish species, especially the Bonneville cutthroat trout, gradually lost their ideal breeding grounds. The meadows that were once green year-round also began to wither earlier after each spring because the soil could no longer retain water. The change happened very slowly, so slowly that each generation only saw the stream slightly worse than the previous one. Because of this, almost no one realized the entire system was collapsing. They just thought nature naturally changed that way. By 1995, Jay Wild returned to take over the family ranch. Before his eyes was no longer the Birch Creek of his childhood memories. Right from the beginning of summer, many sections of the stream were completely dry. The ponds where he once saw schools of fish swimming were gone. Both banks were reduced to cracked patches of dirt mixed with sparse tufts of grass. Each year, the flow ended earlier than the year before, making ranching increasingly difficult. The most heartbreaking thing was that Jay used to think the cause was simply climate change or decreased rainfall. He had no idea that the answer had actually been present right in his childhood memories all along: the disappearance of the beavers. Part 3. The Failed Experiment and the Mystery Unraveled. By 2006, Jay Wild began to look at Birch Creek's past in a different light. Every morning, watching the stream run dry, he constantly asked himself what had changed since his childhood. Some years had less rainfall, but not enough to explain why the entire system had degraded so severely. Then a seemingly minor detail suddenly popped into his memory when he was a kid. Birch Creek always had beavers. It was after they disappeared that the stream began to change. This thought led Wild to decide to try something many around him considered futile, bringing the beavers back. This was no simple task. Beavers are wild animals managed by state agencies. So it took Wild nearly 2 years to get permission from the U.S. Forest Service and coordinate with relevant departments to execute the plan. In 2008, the first beavers were brought back to Birch Creek. Wild hoped they would quickly build dams like before, retain water, and gradually restore the stream. But after only a short time, all the beavers disappeared. No dams were built. There was no sign they had stayed. Wild tried again in 2009, hoping for a different result. But this time was also a complete failure. The beavers either left or vanished after just a few days. Initially, many thought that beavers were simply no longer suited for Birch Creek. Some argued the environment had changed too much, making restoration impossible. However, Wild did not accept that explanation. If this place had been the natural habitat for beavers for hundreds of years, there had to be a specific reason why they couldn't return. He decided to seek out experts. Wild contacted Professor Joe Wheaton and scientist Nick Bowes from Utah State University, two experts with years of research on stream restoration in the American West. After surveying Birch Creek, they quickly spotted a problem that almost no one had noticed before. Everyone thought beavers needed to build dams to create ponds. But in reality, they need to have a pond first so they can live long enough to build a dam. When a beaver starts settling in a new area, it needs water deep enough to avoid predators like mountain lions, coyotes, or wolves. Deep water is also where they cache branches as a food source for the winter. If the stream is too shallow, the beavers have almost no shelter. They become very easy targets before they can build any dams at all. That was exactly the condition of Birch Creek at the time. The stream bed had eroded and incised over decades. Most of the flow was only a few dozen centimeters deep, completely failing to meet the basic survival needs of the beavers. Wild had brought the right animals back, but he put them into an environment that was not yet conditioned for them to survive. This was the turning point of the entire project. Instead of just releasing more beavers, the research team decided they had to help them get past the initial stage. Their idea was very simple. If the beavers couldn't build a dam themselves yet, humans would build a temporary version to set the stage for them to start. In the fall of 2015, Wild, Joe Wheaton, Nick Bowes, and their colleagues set out to build 19 structures known as Beaver Dam Analogs, BDAs, often referred to as fake dams. They were made by pounding wooden posts into the stream bed and weaving branches and natural materials between them, mimicking the structure of a real beaver dam. The goal was not to create permanent structures, but merely to slow the flow and hold back enough water to form small ponds. After the first ponds appeared, the team collaborated with the Idaho Department of Fish and Game to relocate 5 beavers from other areas. These were all individuals that had been trapped for building dams near roads, irrigation canals, or residential areas, where they were considered a nuisance. Instead of being euthanized or continually driven away, they were relocated to Birch Creek. This time, the result was completely different. The beavers didn't leave. They immediately started using the ponds created by the BDAs as their shelter. After a short time, they brought in more branches, reinforced the existing structures, and began building new sections of dam according to their pure instincts. The fascinating thing is that humans were not the ones who restored Birch Creek. They only untied the exact knot that made it impossible for beavers to survive. The rest, the true engineers of the stream, completed themselves. And what happened after that far exceeded the expectations of the entire research team. Part 4. An animal that revived an entire stream. The initial success proved that the research team's hypothesis was correct. The problem was never that beavers no longer knew how to build dams, or that Birch Creek was no longer suitable for them. The problem was that the ecosystem had degraded to a point where beavers couldn't survive the initial phase to re-establish a population. Once that barrier was removed, things started happening very fast. In 2016, Jay Wild hosted a workshop right on his ranch. Over 40 ecological restoration experts, resource managers, and ranchers from various western states came to Birch Creek to witness the results firsthand. This wasn't just a tour, but a hands-on working session. During the workshop, the group worked together to build 7 more BDAs, bringing the total number of structures to 26 at the same time. The team released an additional 4 beavers relocated from areas of human-wildlife conflict. However, what is noteworthy is that after that point, the human role diminished. The fake dams only served as an initial foundation. The beavers quickly took them over following their exact instincts. They brought in more branches, mud, and vegetation to reinforce and expand the existing dams, while also building many completely new dams in locations they deemed suitable. No blueprints, no machinery, and no guidance from humans were needed. The beaver colony independently expanded the water regulation system of the entire stream. The results after just a few years surprised even the scientists. By the fall of 2019, Birch Creek had a total of 149 dams built or modified by beavers. This number was many times higher than the initial 26 artificial dams humans had erected. The dam system stretched along the stream, creating multiple successive water retention zones. Instead of flowing away quickly as before, the water was held longer and slowly seeped into the ground. The effectiveness was clearly shown by how long the stream maintained its flow. Before the project began, Birch Creek often ran dry quite early in the summer, but by 2019 the stream flowed for about 42 days longer than before, in a basin frequently affected by drought like the American West. Over a month of extra water makes a massive difference for the entire ecosystem as well as for ranching operations. As the water returned, many other changes followed. Willows and riparian vegetation began to recover because the water table was elevated. The soil retained moisture better, reducing dry cracking in the summer. Areas that were once just nutrient-poor grass patches gradually became habitats for various birds, insects, and small mammals. This was not the result of tree planting or mechanical landscaping, but a natural consequence of water being retained for an extended period. One of the most obvious changes was the return of the Bonneville cutthroat trout. This is a native fish species that had sharply declined due to habitat loss. After the beaver dam system was re-established, the fish population increased by 10 to 50 times depending on the stream section. In one 100-meter stretch where researchers previously recorded only about 5 individuals, they counted up to 170 after restoration. That is a level of increase very few ecological restoration projects achieve in just a few years. But Birch Creek isn't the only place demonstrating the value of beavers. During research across several western states, scientists discovered another remarkable benefit. Areas with beaver dam systems often retain significantly higher soil moisture than the surrounding landscape. When massive wildfires break out, many of these areas act as natural oases. The trees and vegetation around the beaver ponds remain green, while most of the adjacent areas are scorched by fire. This doesn't mean beaver dams can stop wildfires, but they help maintain wetlands that are far more resilient against the increasingly severe fires caused by hot and dry climates. The remarkable thing is that all these results didn't come from new technology or a massive investment project. Humans only provided the initial conditions, while the vast majority of the work was done by the beavers themselves. An animal once viewed as a pest proved that it could restore water resources, improve fish habitats, support biodiversity, and increase ecosystem resilience against both drought and wildfires. Part 5. Nature knows how to save itself. After the success of Birch Creek, what changed was not just a stream, but the perspective of many ranchers in the American West. Jay Wild grew up in a family that considered beavers a pest, but he himself became one of their most active protectors and restorers, instead of just tending to his own ranch. Wild began spending much of his time traveling across states like Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, and Nevada to share his experience with other ranchers. He didn't claim that beavers would solve every problem, but he offered proof right from his own land a once dry stream now held water longer. The ecosystem had recovered, and ranching was more stable. These were results that any rancher could see with their own eyes. In parallel, Utah State University continued to expand its beaver restoration programs. One prominent initiative is the Beaver Bunkhouse, where beavers are taken after being trapped in areas of human-wildlife conflict. Previously, when beavers built dams that flooded roads or affected irrigation canals in residential areas, they were often euthanized or forcibly removed. Now, many individuals undergo health checks and monitoring before being transported to degraded basins where their presence can benefit the entire ecosystem. This approach both reduces conflicts between humans and wildlife and harnesses the beaver's very instincts to restore degrading rivers. Following Birch Creek, the model of using beaver dam analogs combined with beaver reintroduction was also applied in many other places in the western United States. Each basin has different conditions, so the results are not entirely identical. But the principle is exactly the same if you create the initial conditions for beavers to stay. They will continue the work that humans struggle to do at such low costs. It is no coincidence that in many recent studies, beavers are increasingly viewed as crucial natural allies in drought adaptation and stream restoration strategies. The interesting thing is that beavers know nothing about concepts like hydrology, climate change, or ecological restoration. They don't understand groundwater tables, the water cycle, or biodiversity. They simply do what they have been programmed by instinct to do through millions of years of evolution: find branches, build dams, and create a safe home for their families. Yet that very ordinary behavior helps retain water during dry seasons, slow down stream velocity, limit erosion, create breeding habitats for fish, restore vegetation, and increase ecosystem resilience against climatic fluctuations. The story at Birch Creek also offers a greater lesson. For decades, humans have invested billions of dollars in water control, erosion prevention, and stream restoration structures. Many projects achieve positive results, but quite a few also demand enormous costs to maintain. Meanwhile, an animal once considered a destructive pest can perform many of the same functions simply through its natural behavior. This does not mean human intervention is unnecessary, but it shows that sometimes the most effective solution is to restore the missing links that already existed within the ecosystem rather than trying to replace them with technology. What astounds scientists the most is not how many dams the beavers built, but the lesson they left behind. Some ecosystems don't need humans to do everything for them. They just need us to return the exact species that rightfully belong there. And in another corner of America, another small animal is quietly forging a miraculous revival in much the same way. That will be the story in the next video.